So, I want to speak directly to you for a moment because we have all found ourselves standing in, like, the exact center of this really profoundly frustrating scenario.
Oh yeah, the classic trap.
Right. Picture a morning where you wake up long before the sun. The floor is cold, the house is completely silent, and you've decided that this is the cycle where you finally transform your life.
You're fully committed.
Exactly. You are trying to break a stubborn, ingrained habit, or maybe you're attempting to build an entirely new reality for yourself. A business, a creative pursuit, just a new way of existing.
Yeah, and you sit at your desk and you write down your objectives with this absolute rigid determination.
Yes. You force yourself into these rigorous routines. You meticulously manipulate every single external variable. You repeat your daily affirmations until your voice is just like hoarse.
Trying to alter your behavior through sheer violent willpower. You grind, you hustle.
You just apply immense friction to your life, and it's exhausting.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the modern condition in a nutshell, right? We armor up.
We really do.
We prepare for this brutal, drawn-out siege against our own nature. We're operating under this deeply embedded assumption that victory requires an immense, agonizing exertion of energy.
Like we're stubborn machines that need to be beaten into submission.
Exactly. We treat ourselves like hardware that needs a hammer.
That is the exact mentality. And yet, here is the crushing reality you inevitably face. Despite exerting this colossal effort day after day, cycle after cycle, you eventually hit an invisible wall.
Always.
The external world remains an immovable boulder. The needle of your life, it just doesn't twitch. And you are left sitting there completely drained, endlessly frustrated, and, just bewildered.
Wondering why an ocean of hard work yields absolutely no shift.
Right. You've done everything society told you to do, and the result is just a hollow echo.
Well, the reason for that hollow echo is something we rarely stop to examine. We are operating on a fundamentally flawed premise regarding how human reality is actually constructed.
Right, because we're taught the opposite from day one.
We are. Almost since our first breath, we've been conditioned to believe that we must aggressively alter our internal programming from the outside in.
Like if we just apply enough physical pressure, the internal gears will snap into place.
But the mechanics of consciousness dictate the exact opposite. Trying to bend the mind to your will through brute effort is, well, it's not just backwards, it's actively destructive.
Actively destructive, wow.
Yeah. We do not need to forcefully alter our state. We have to recharge and reorient our inner state through harmonious alignment.
Because force inherently breeds resistance, right?
Exactly. Alignment, on the other hand, creates a frictionless flow.
And that concept of frictionless flow is exactly what we are pursuing in our exploration today, because the common struggle you and I just described, it reminds me of a very specific image.
Oh, I love your analogies. Let's hear it.
Okay, so trying to change your life through sheer force is like standing in a garden, looking at a bed of soil, and trying to force the plants to bloom by aggressively grabbing the tiny green stems and yanking them upward.
Oh man, just pulling them out of the dirt.
Yeah, you are out there pulling on the foliage, sweating, demanding that the blossoms open up right this second. But anyone who has ever touched the earth knows you cannot drag life out of the ground by force.
No, you'll just kill it.
Right. You have to cultivate the soil, you have to provide the water, ensure the optimal temperature, and then, step back to let the innate intelligence of nature take its unforced course.
Because pulling on the stems only uproots the plant. It completely severs the root system and destroys the exact potential you are so desperately trying to nurture.
Exactly.
So today, our mission is to map out the true architecture of human consciousness. We're going to strip away the exhausting mythology of forceful repetition and constant grinding.
Thank goodness. I think we all need a break from the grind.
We really do.
Yeah.
Instead, we're going to uncover the magnetic, effortless language that the fabric of our reality actually responds to.
I think we desperately need this shift in perspective. To stop yanking on the stems and start tending to the soil, we first need to understand the terrain we are working with.
The structural architecture.
Yeah. If we look at the raw mechanics of the human mind, what does that actually look like?
Well, the architecture of human consciousness can be understood as three sweeping, interconnected realms. We begin with the conscious mind.
Okay, the conscious mind.
Right. This is the everyday analytical interface you use to navigate the immediate physical environment. It's the faculty that calculates risk, analyzes the weather, figures out your commute.
The loud, noisy part of the brain.
Exactly. But it is vital to understand that the conscious mind is entirely finite. It's basically a reducing valve.
A reducing valve. What do you mean by that?
I mean, it is designed to filter out the overwhelming majority of sensory data so that you can function without being completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of information in the physical world.
Oh, I see. So it's essentially a survival mechanism. It keeps us focused on the immediate threat or the immediate task, but it's incredibly narrow in its scope.
Exactly. It's just the tip of the iceberg breaking the surface of the water.
It's loud, it's narrow, and it's easily panicked.
That is a perfect characterization. Now, just beneath that turbulent surface lies the second realm, the subconscious mind.
This is the fertile soil we mentioned earlier, right?
Yes. The subconscious is this vast repository of cellular memory, deeply held beliefs, and autonomic functions.
Mm.
It is incredibly receptive.
And it doesn't have a critical filter, does it?
No, it doesn't. It simply accepts what it is fed. But the subconscious itself is not the final destination. It is merely a gateway.
A gateway to the third realm. And this is where we leave the traditional psychological models behind and enter something much more profound.
We enter the realm of the superconscious, or we can also refer to it as the infinite intelligence.
The infinite intelligence.
Yeah, right. This is an unbounded ocean of pure potential. It exists entirely outside the rigid constraints of linear time and the dense laws of physical space.
So it's not bound by any of the rules that the conscious mind is obsessed with.
Not at all. It is the supreme source of all generative power. It holds the uncollapsed blueprint of absolutely every possibility that ever was or ever could be.
Okay, so if we look at this practically, how do these three distinct layers interact? Like when you, sitting in your room, decide you want to fundamentally change the trajectory of your life.
The ultimate mechanism of creation is profoundly simple in theory, but extraordinarily difficult for the modern human to execute.
Of course it is, because we're so used to fighting.
Right. The objective is to allow the noisy, hypervigilant conscious mind to stand down.
Just get it out of the way.
Yeah. When the analytical conscious mind quiets its constant narrations and steps aside, the inner mind, that subconscious gateway, is left wide open.
Okay.
And in that state of openness, it can directly commune with the infinite intelligence.
And that intelligence reorganizes things.
Yes. The infinite intelligence possesses the pure, boundless potential to reorganize your reality. But that potential can only be accessed through the gateway of the subconscious, entirely free from the frantic interference of the everyday ego.
Okay, I hear the mechanics of this, but I have to introduce some heavy pushback here.
Bring it on.
If this infinite wellspring of pure potential is structurally built into our consciousness, like if you and I are quite literally walking around with an unbounded ocean of possibility accessible through our own minds, why is the default human experience one of systemic struggle?
That is the big question.
Right. Why does the overwhelming majority of humanity feel utterly disconnected, stressed, and powerless in their day-to-day lives? If we are holding the keys to the universe, why are we all seemingly locked in the basement?
That is the essential paradox of the human condition. The disconnection is not a design flaw in the architecture. It's a profound sensory illusion.
An illusion.
Yes, we become entirely disconnected from this infinite source because we are deeply, mesmerizingly hypnotized by the third-dimensional realm.
Hypnotized. You mean we are completely captivated by the sensory data the conscious mind is feeding us?
Exactly. From the moment we develop our analytical faculties, we mistakenly conclude that the physical world, this realm of solid objects, ticking clocks, immediate tactile consequences, we think that is the absolute singular reality.
We think it's all there is.
Because our physical senses are so overwhelmingly loud. They convince us that what we can touch, see, and measure is the sum total of existence.
And that density creates a form of collective amnesia, doesn't it?
It really does. It blinds us to the luminous, infinite expanse that resides just beneath the threshold of our waking awareness. We become trapped in the mundane mechanics of survival, completely forgetting our innate connection to the generative source.
Man, that amnesia explains so much about our societal behavior.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. We become so hyper-focused on the rigid rules of the physical world that we forget we're actually operating a much more sophisticated piece of multidimensional machinery.
You forget how the machine actually works.
And this brings us to a crucial revelation about how human beings attempt to force change. Because we are hypnotized by the physical world, we place all of our faith in physical action.
Yes. And placing all your faith solely in physical action is the fundamental illusion that generates all of the frustration we discussed at the beginning of our session.
It's the deeply ingrained, unquestioned belief that taking intense, grueling physical action will, by itself, fundamentally rewrite reality.
Which is entirely false.
This is where I want to challenge the prevailing narrative, because absolutely everything we are taught by modern culture demands the exact opposite approach.
Oh, completely.
We're told that the only way to bend the universe to our will is to manipulate the physical environment. Move your body faster, work longer hours, rearrange the pieces on the board.
The hustle culture.
Right. But if we follow the logic of the three realms, action is tied exclusively to the dense physical plane, and the physical plane is strictly a realm of effects. It is not a realm of causes.
Understanding the distinction between cause and effect is the hinge upon which this entire philosophy turns.
Break that down for us.
When you look at the physical world, you are never looking at an origin point. You are looking at a crystallization.
The crystallization. Okay.
Physical reality is the final, hardened result of a long, invisible chain of energetic events. Attempting to fundamentally change the trajectory of your life solely by altering your physical behavior is logically inconsistent.
Because you are attempting to change an effect by manipulating an effect.
Exactly.
It's like you're trying to rearrange the furniture in a
burning house.
Yes.
And expecting the fire to go out just because you moved the couch.
That is the precise futility of it. You cannot alter a physical outcome without tracing it back to its non-physical origin.
The true chain of creation does not originate in the muscles or the vocal cords. It trickled down from a much higher, less dense frequency.
I want to be very careful here because we need to make this grounded. Walk us through that actual chain of creation. How does a change in reality actually trickle down from the infinite intelligence into the physical world?
The cascade begins with your dominant internal frequency.
Frequency meaning?
The overall emotional and energetic state you consistently embody. That frequency acts as a tuning fork. It dictates the specific nature of your inner guidance, which most of us recognize as our intuition.
Intuition. Okay.
So when your frequency shifts, your intuition begins to feed you different impulses. That quiet inner knowing creates a silent, persistent internal compulsion.
A compulsion. So not a rational, logical plan mapped out on a spreadsheet?
No, not at all.
It's more like a feeling of being gently nudged or inexplicably drawn in a specific direction.
Precisely. It is an inspired urge. And it is that internal compulsion that ultimately animates the body to take physical action.
I see.
Only then does that action interact with the physical world to crystallize your new reality. The physical action is necessary, but it is merely the final, delayed physical expression of an invisible frequency.
I have an analogy that I think perfectly captures how backwards our default approach is.
I am ready for it.
Okay, let's say you are sitting in a massive, crowded cinema watching a movie play out on the giant silver screen.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You look up at the screen and realize you absolutely despise the plot of the film. The characters are miserable, the setting is bleak, it's just a terrible movie.
A tragedy.
Right. So what do? You leap out of your velvet seat, you sprint down the dark aisle, you climb up onto the stage, and you start furiously scrubbing the canvas of the screen with your bare hands.
Trying to erase the projected image and draw a new one.
Exactly.
All while the projector at the back of the theater is still perfectly running, beaming the exact same tragic plot right onto the back of your head.
Exactly that. You can scrub the canvas until your hands are completely raw. You can exhaust yourself to the point of collapse, but the image will never, ever change.
Because the screen is merely the realm of effects.
Yes. The canvas is passive. It is just catching the light. If you want to change the movie, you do not attack the screen.
No, you have to stop fighting the effect.
You have to turn around, walk all the way up the stairs, step into the projection booth, and fundamentally change the film reel.
The reel is your frequency.
And the projector is the subconscious gateway.
And the screen is your physical reality.
Mm.
Man, that visual perfectly encapsulates the madness of our societal hustle.
It really highlights how exhausted we all are for no reason.
It does. And we see this mechanical difference vividly when we observe the extremes of the human experience. Let's look at two theoretical individuals.
Okay.
One is living a life of profound, crushing scarcity and constant struggle. The other is living a life of boundless, effortless abundance.
The two extremes.
Right. If you analyze their lives, the primary difference between them is rarely the sheer volume of their daily physical labor.
Mm.
In fact, the individual trapped in scarcity is often working themselves to the bone, exerting far more physical effort.
They are scrubbing the cinema screen with everything they have. They have 3 jobs, they barely sleep, they are in a constant state of frantic motion.
And yet, the movie remains a tragedy of scarcity.
Wow.
The fundamental divergence between these two individuals lies entirely in the arrangement of their consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The individual whose consciousness is naturally tuned to the frequency of abundance is operating a different film reel.
Because of that frequency, they effortlessly receive the inner guidance of abundance.
Yes, their intuition quietly whispers ideas of expansion, connection, and opportunity.
And that intuition creates the silent internal compulsion you mentioned earlier. They feel genuinely inspired to make a certain phone call, or to pivot their business model, or simply to walk into a room carrying an undeniable magnetic confidence.
Yeah, and those naturally compelled actions seamlessly reflect their dominant frequency. The actions instantly crystallize into a physical reality that mirrors that internal abundance.
Because they are operating from the projection booth.
Exactly. The action flows natural downstream. It's not forced. It's an inevitable consequence of the state of mind.
This sounds incredibly empowering, but it introduces a massive practical problem.
Which is,
If our frequency is the absolute starting point of everything, if changing the film reel is the only way to change the movie, why do our deliberate attempts to shift our own frequency usually end in total failure?
oh, yes.
It's like people try to change their thoughts, they repeat their affirmations, but the door to the projection booth feels deadbolted. It seems like we are using the entirely wrong key to access the subconscious gateway.
We are not just using the wrong key. We are trying to batter the door down with a medieval siege ram.
The siege ram.
The inner mind, that incredibly delicate gateway that bridges us to infinite potential, utterly and unequivocally rejects effort, strain, and tension.
It rejects effort. That is such a bitter pill for a society that practically worships the concept of struggling for greatness.
Oh, it goes against everything we're taught.
We are programmed to believe that if something isn't working, the only solution is to apply more pressure, push harder, break through the wall.
But the biological and energetic architecture of human consciousness does not reward force. It violently recoils from it.
It recoils.
Yes. When we try to brutally force a visualization into our minds, or when we aggressively, breathlessly repeat mantras until our jaws are clenched and our nervous system is buzzing, we are generating massive internal tension.
And what happens when we do that?
The moment the subconscious registers that tension, the delicate gateway slams shut.
It is the equivalent of trying to force a wild, timid animal to trust you by sprinting after it, cornering it in the woods, and screaming at it to calm down.
Perfect analogy. The sheer aggression of your approach guarantees that the animal will bolt in the absolute opposite direction.
That is the exact physiological response.
And the internal tension we generate through forceful effort isn't just a psychological quirk. It is intimately biologically linked to the survival state of consciousness.
The survival state.
When we strain, when we exert forceful mental effort, we signal to our autonomic nervous system that we are in a state of crisis. We flood the body with stress hormones.
Right. Cortisol, adrenaline.
Exactly. We shift into the sympathetic nervous system, operating from the most primal, ancient evolutionary instincts of fight or flight.
So by trying so incredibly hard to change our reality, we are effectively triggering an emergency lockdown procedure within our own biology.
You are telling the body that a predator is in the room.
Wow.
The tense, rapid, chaotic rhythm of a mind locked in the survival state makes any profound connection to the superconscious utterly impossible. The entirety of your biological bandwidth is consumed by the perceived threat.
That makes so much sense.
Attempting to plant a delicate, expansive new idea into a mind that is flooded with survival tension is like trying to hear the gentle drop of a pin while standing in the absolute center of a roaring, chaotic hurricane.
The overwhelming noise of the nervous system simply drowns out everything else.
It does.
You know, what deeply concerns me about this mechanism is that modern society seems almost meticulously engineered to keep humanity perpetually trapped in this exact state of ambient tension.
Oh, undoubtedly.
We are constantly bombarded with a vast constellation of reasons to worry. We worry about economic collapse, we worry about our social status, we are flooded with digital notifications that simulate urgency. We live our entire lives inside the hurricane.
It is the great tragedy of the contemporary era. We exist in a state of chronic, low-grade physiological arousal, constantly preparing for physical threats that are, in reality, abstract anxieties.
We are treating a delayed email like a physical predator.
Exactly. A tiger in the bushes.
And because of this constant baseline tension, we are effectively locking ourselves out of our own infinite potential every single hour of the day.
Yes, we are.
We are taught from childhood that suffering and grinding are the only noble paths to success. But when we apply this violent, forceful friction to the delicate machinery of the inner mind, it is not just ineffective, it breaks the mechanism. We are fortifying the very walls we are trying to dissolve.
We are pouring toxic chemicals on the soil while demanding the garden to grow.
Oh, that's such a striking way to put it.
The subconscious mind views that forceful intervention as an intruder, and it hardens its defenses to protect the existing cellular memory.
So we have to fundamentally redesign our approach. If sheer force, biological strain, and cultural tension lock the massive doors to our potential, what are the actual keys to gently disarming the system?
Right, how do we get in?
Yeah, how do we step out of the hurricane and finally open the gateway?
To accept a new reality and fundamentally rewrite the film reel, the inner mind requires two absolute, non-negotiable conditions.
Okay, two conditions.
These are the twin pillars of true transformation: profound relaxation and unshakable conviction.
Let's isolate the first pillar, profound relaxation. We need to define this carefully because in our culture, relaxation usually means collapsing on a couch and scrolling through a phone to numb out.
Right, check it out.
But we are talking about a highly specific, intentional alteration of our physiological state, aren't we?
We are talking about a state that is miles away from mere distraction. Genuine, profound relaxation physically alters the measurable rhythm of our consciousness.
How so?
It shifts the entire operating frequency of the brain away from the frantic, jagged, rapid-fire beta waves of the waking analytical world. It transitions the mind into a much slower, gentle, rhythmic tide.
Like the alpha and theta states.
Exactly, a rhythmic tide. It is a natural, effortless oscillation rather than the forced, mechanical churning of an anxious intellect.
And when we consciously enter this deeply meditative, slowed-down state, something structurally miraculous happens, right?
It does. The ego, which acts as the fierce, hyper-vigilant guardian of our limitations, the part of the psyche constantly scanning for danger and reaffirming the current physical reality, that ego is temporarily disarmed.
It essentially goes offline.
Yes, the guard falls asleep at the gate.
I love that. The guard falls asleep.
And with the ego finally out of the way, the heavy armor of the conscious mind is removed. The gateway opens. In this state of profound physical and mental surrender, a vast empty space is created.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Right. It is only in this space of non-resistance that the boundless potential of the infinite intelligence can freely flow in. Relaxation is not a lack of action. It is the ultimate act of creative surrender.
That makes perfect sense. Relaxation clears the space, it opens the door without triggering the alarm system.
Exactly.
But an open door isn't enough on its own. We have to actually invite something inside.
Yeah.
That brings us to the second pillar, conviction. Now, you use the phrase unshakable conviction. We need to untangle this from the concept of positive thinking or mere optimism.
Optimism is just an intellectual posture. We often confuse true conviction with trust or, hope.
Right.
But trust, by its very definition, implies the lingering shadow of doubt. You trust that a chair will hold your weight because you acknowledge on some level that it might break.
Yeah.
You hope for a favorable outcome because the unfavorable outcome is still a highly viable possibility in your mind.
Right. If I say I hope it doesn't rain today, my mind is actively picturing the rain.
Exactly. The inner mind is exquisitely sensitive to that subtle resonance of doubt. If you feed it hope, it registers the underlying fear.
Wow.
Conviction, on the other hand, is a state of absolute, pure, resonant knowing. It is an internal frequency entirely devoid of contradiction.
Absolute knowing.
When an idea delivered to the widely opened inner mind with the unquestionable massive weight of total certainty, the subconscious does not argue. It does not cross-reference with the physical world. It simply absorbs the idea as an absolute historical truth.
Okay. I'm going to interject here because this is where the rational mind violently rebels.
I expected this.
It is an incredibly practical problem. How on earth can a rational human being genuinely possess absolute, unquestionable conviction for a reality that has not materialized yet?
Right.
How do you convince your own deeply skeptical, evidence-based brain of something your physical eyes cannot see, your hands cannot touch, and your environment actively contradicts?
It seems impossible.
It feels like standing in a blizzard and trying to convince yourself with absolute certainty that you are sunburned on a tropical beach. It feels like literal self-delusion.
It sounds like delusion only if you fundamentally misunderstand the timeline of reality.
The timeline.
Yes, the paradox dissolves the moment you recognize, on a profound physiological level, that physical reality is simply a delayed echo of an internal certainty.
A delayed echo, meaning the sound has already been generated in the canyon, and we are just waiting for the sound wave to hit the far wall and bounce back to our ears.
That is exactly it. The physical manifestation is always, undeniably trailing behind the internal shift. To bridge the gap, you have to understand the inherent vulnerability, the brilliant blind spot of the human brain.
What's the blind spot?
The subconscious mind is completely blind to the external physical world. It possesses no eyes of its own. It cannot distinguish between a deeply felt, vivid internal experience and an actual physical event occurring in space and time.
Wait, let me make sure I'm grasping the magnitude of this. Are you saying that to the subconscious architecture, an intensely felt imagination is processed neurologically as a recorded historical fact?
That is the literal mechanism. When you vividly imagine and experience, the exact same neural pathways and brain regions illuminate as if you were physically performing the action.
That's incredible.
If you can generate the internal experience with absolute certainty and zero contradictory tension, the inner mind registers the event as a completed fact. It then aligns the entirety of your biological and energetic frequency to that new fact.
And that starts the cascade.
Yes. This immediately begins the trickle-down process of new intuition, new compulsion, new physical action, and eventual physical echo.
Which brings us to the most vital mechanical question of our entire exploration. How do we establish this state of unquestionable conviction?
Right. How do we do it?
How do we successfully feed the inner mind this vivid internal experience so that it registers as a historical fact? Because clearly, standing in front of a mirror and mindlessly repeating, I am successful, 1,000 times while your stomach is tied in knots of anxiety is not moving the needle.
No, it's not. The repetition fails because it is attempting to communicate using the wrong language entirely.
The wrong
A
language.
native language of the subconscious mind is not constructed of repetitive intellectual vocabulary. The true magnetic language of the inner mind is emotion.
Emotion. We really need to redefine that word because the culture usually frames emotions as chaotic, uncontrollable reactions to external stimuli. We think of them as side effects of living.
We must completely invert that view. Emotion is, quite literally, energy in motion.
Energy in motion.
It is the most potent, generative, organizing force within the human operating system. When you compare the raw power of emotion to mere intellectual thought, the difference in magnitude is unfathomable.
Let's do some metaphorical substitution here to really grasp the scale of what you were saying. Okay, if we think about our intellectual center, the part of us that processes language, logic, and affirmations, those thoughts are merely tiny, localized electrical sparks firing off in the brain. They are brief, they are superficial, and they dissipate into the ether almost instantly.
A solitary spark in the vast night sky. Barely enough energy to illuminate a single room for a fraction of a second.
But the emotional center, the core of our physiological and energetic being that casts an electromagnetic field that is an astronomical magnitude larger than the intellect.
Pretty larger.
It is not a brief spark, it is a blazing, sustained sun. This emotional core holds a vast, intricate constellation of cellular memory. It dictates the rhythm of the heart, the state of the nervous system, and it acts as the true, massive broadcasting tower of our personal reality.
And that broadcasting tower sends out continuous ripples that dictate the entire arrangement of the quantum field around you.
So the intellect is whispering, and the emotion is screaming.
Exactly. This is precisely why sheer intellectual repetition fails so spectacularly. You are trying to transmit a new signal to the universe using a tiny flickering spark, while your massive emotional core is simultaneously broadcasting a roaring, deafening signal of doubt, anxiety, and unworthiness.
And the inner mind just listens to the louder signal.
The inner mind and the universe itself only responds to the loudest broadcast.
So if the emotional broadcast is the only thing that matters, to change your reality, you must fundamentally displace the old emotional programming.
Displacement, yeah.
You cannot simply take a mental eraser, wipe away a deeply ingrained traumatic belief, and leave an empty space. As we said, nature completely abhors a vacuum.
You cannot command the darkness to simply leave a room. You must introduce a brighter light. The mechanism of internal change is displacement.
How do you accomplish that?
You accomplish this displacement by deliberately generating an equal, or ideally, far greater emotional intensity for your desired reality than the emotional weight of your current physical limitation.
That makes me think of the fundamental laws of physical displacement. Imagine you are holding a glass completely filled with dark, stagnant, murky water.
Okay.
You cannot empty that glass by standing over it, yelling at it, and commanding the darkness to vanish. No amount of forceful words or intellectual willpower will change the composition of the water.
It's still going to be dirty water.
Right. What you must do is place that glass beneath a running stream and begin pouring in pure, crystal clear water.
You introduce a new, pure element with a continuous, unbroken flow.
Exactly. You pour and you pour. At first, the water simply swirls and mixes. The glass looks a bit lighter, but it is still murky.
But you don't stop pouring.
You do not stop. You keep pouring that clear water until the darkness inevitably rises to the top and overflows the brim. The sheer volume and continuous gentle pressure of the pure water entirely displaces the dark water.
Until there's no darkness left.
Eventually, the glass holds nothing but absolute clarity. The darkness wasn't violently scrubbed away. It was simply overwhelmed and replaced by a greater, purer, continuous force.
Man, that is a flawless representation of emotional displacement.
Thank you.
The dark water represents the heavy, stagnant emotion of your old beliefs, the deeply wired feelings of fear, scarcity, and unworthiness that dictate your current movie screen.
And the clear water.
The clear water is the pure, resonant, emotional charge of your desired reality. By flooding your deeply relaxed inner mind with the emotional intensity of your desired state, the old limiting neural pathways are simply washed out. They overflow the brim until they no longer reside within your inner space.
Oh, okay. Let's synthesize the architecture of this entire journey.
Let's do it.
We understand that we absolutely must achieve profound relaxation to disarm the survival ego and open the gateway. We need absolute conviction so the inner mind accepts the new reality as an established fact rather than a hopeful wish.
Correct.
And we achieve this conviction through powerful emotional displacement, flooding the system with clear water to rewrite the cellular memory.
The foundational architecture is perfectly established. The mechanisms are clear.
But the challenge lies in the implementation. How do we practically, tangibly apply this in our daily lives without accidentally slipping right back into the familiar trap of effort and strain?
The how-to.
Yeah. How do we pour the clear water into the glass without aggressively blasting it with a high-pressure fire hose, knocking the glass over, and causing that survival tension we talked about earlier?
The precise methodology is surprisingly elegant, and it relies entirely on extreme simplicity.
Simplicity is good.
The technique involves internally, intensely, and vividly experiencing a singular, highly specific moment. You design a brief snippet of an experience just a few seconds long that inherently implies your desired reality is already a solidified, indisputable fact.
A scene that implies the ultimate wish is already fulfilled. You do not visualize the long, arduous journey to get there. You solely focus on the destination itself.
That is a critical distinction. Visualizing the journey requires a calculation of time, logistics, and effort.
And the ego loves logistics.
Oh, it thrives on it. The moment you introduce logistics, you engage the analytical conscious mind, which immediately invites doubt and anxiety about how it will happen. The destination is simply a state of being.
Got it.
And the mechanics of how you experience this mental scene are paramount. The scene must be experienced from a universal, first-person perspective.
Meaning you are looking out through your own eyes. You are not watching yourself on a movie screen from the third person.
If you are watching yourself, you are merely a spectator to your own life. The subconscious registers that as a fantasy.
Right, because that's not how we experience real life.
Exactly. When you look out through your own eyes, seeing your own hands in front of you, feeling the texture of your clothes, hearing sounds originating from your own central vantage point, your subconscious cannot differentiate the visualization from waking reality.
And what should the emotional tone of this scene be? Because I think the overwhelming majority of people assume they need to manufacture a state of explosive ecstasy.
They think they need to be euphoric.
Yeah, they think they need to feel like they just won the grand prize, jumping up and down, screaming with joy, their heart pounding out of their chest.
That is a very common and deeply detrimental misconception. It does not need to be a grand euphoric spectacle. In fact, attempting to force extreme euphoria can backfire completely.
Why is that?
Because euphoria often feels deeply unnatural to our baseline physiological state. When you try to force that level of excitement, You trigger the ego to step in and say, wait, this feels fake, this feels dangerous. You must align the emotion with your authentic, grounded nature.
So if jumping up and down feels forced and theatrical, you absolutely shouldn't do it.
Right. For many individuals, the truest feeling of a massive goal accomplished is not explosive joy, but a profound grounding relief, the exhalation of breath.
Just a sigh of relief.
Yes, if a peaceful, quiet, deep satisfaction is your natural state of equilibrium, then that gentle, quiet calm is the exact required emotional charge. The authenticity of the emotion is unfathomably more important than the sheer volume of it.
Let's build a highly specific, illustrative example to really ground this mechanism. Imagine your goal is a major milestone in your life, a profound shift in your career, or finally achieving a state of complete financial security.
Okay.
Instead of visualizing an extravagant, chaotic celebration with blinding camera flashes and roaring crowds, you design a profoundly simple, quiet scene.
The simpler the scene, the better. Simplicity bypasses the analytical mind's tendency to nitpick the details.
Right. So you imagine standing in a familiar, quiet room with a deeply trusted friend, someone who has always known you and supported you.
Perfect.
You look through your own eyes and see them stepping forward. They offer you a brief, authentic, incredibly warm, congratulatory embrace. You focus on the sensory details. You feel the physical pressure of their arms around your shoulders. You feel the fabric of their coat.
And you focus intensely on the auditory detail. What exactly do they say to you in that moment?
They use the exact casual phrasing they would use in real life. They don't deliver a grand Shakespearean monologue about your triumph.
Oh, you have conquered the world.
Right. No one talks like that. They just pull back, look you directly in the eye, and say, I am so proud of you. You really did it. Just a few quiet words.
That approach is structurally brilliant. The mind recognizes the familiar cadence of their trusted friend's voice. It recognizes the casual, understated nature of the phrase.
It feels real.
This extreme authenticity acts as a psychological Trojan horse. It effortlessly bypasses the critical, doubting faculties of the ego and tricks the inner mind into accepting the scene as a physical historical fact.
Wow. A Trojan horse.
The moment the inner mind accepts it as fact, it instantly, automatically generates a potent, genuine emotional charge. You do not have to forcefully manufacture the emotion. The accepted fact produces the emotion naturally, from the inside out.
So you have engineered this short, hyper-authentic 10-second scene. What is the actual process for implementing it?
You simply loop it. You must first enter a state of deep, profound relaxation.
Getting the brain waves down.
Right. The ideal window is perhaps right before drifting off to sleep, or immediately upon waking when the brain waves are naturally slowing down like the outgoing tide and the analytical guard is asleep.
Okay, so you're in that groggy, peaceful state.
In that receptive state, you replay this short, authentic scene. You loop it gently, allowing the feelings of quiet satisfaction, relief, and the warmth of the embrace to wash over you again and again.
You are sitting beneath the stream, pouring the clear water.
Pouring the clear water. But here's the ultimate rule, the fail-safe safeguard against falling back into our cultural habits of force.
Okay, what is it?
The absolute moment any sense of strain, anxiety, or effort creeps into this mental exercise, you must immediately stop.
Stop completely.
If you find yourself furrowing your brow, trying to force the mental image to be sharper, or forcefully commanding your heart to feel more emotion, you have re-engaged the ego. You have sounded the alarm of the survival state.
You have stepped out of the flow and started aggressively pulling on the stems of the garden again.
You must drop the exercise the very second it feels like work. The singular goal of this process is to let the emotional weight of the scene settle into the inner mind entirely naturally, entirely free of forceful intervention.
It is exactly like gently resting a heavy, perfectly smooth stone onto a bed of incredibly soft-yielding clay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You do not need to raise a hammer and violently pound the stone into the earth to make a mark. In fact, hitting it with a hammer would only shatter the stone, ruin the smooth surface of the clay, and destroy the imprint.
It ruins the whole thing.
Right. You simply place the stone there, carefully and deliberately. Its own natural, undeniable weight, resting peacefully in the silence, will inevitably sink down and leave a profound, perfect, indelible impression. The inherent weight of the truth does the actual work for you.
A flawless analogy to conclude on. The weight of your internal conviction, when gently placed upon a deeply relaxed mind, leaves an internal imprint on the fabric of your consciousness.
It's permanent.
The inner mind permanently shapes itself around that new reality. And the universe, operating as a faithful mirror, subsequently arranges the physical echo to match the precise mold you have created.
This entire exploration leads us to a broader, incredibly empowering philosophical reflection.
It really does.
When we finally strip away all the exhausting methodologies, the brutal physical friction, and the sheer panic of modern striving, we arrive at a profound realization about our place in the universe. We are not, and have never been, helpless victims endlessly battered against a rigid, unyielding physical world.
No, we are, in our truest, most fundamental essence, the silent, powerful architects of an incredibly fluid universe.
Architects.
The physical world is not a dense prison. It is merely a passive canvas, waiting for the proper frequency to project upon it.
By relinquishing those exhausted, broken methods of brute force, by dropping the hammer, stepping off the stage, and refusing to scrub the cinema screen, we stop fighting the mirror of reality.
We finally realize that trying to change a reflection by attacking the glass is literal madness.
Complete madness. Instead, we embrace the elegant, magnetic power of relaxed emotional conviction. We learn to step back into the projection booth. We learn to fundamentally change the internal subject that is casting the reflection in the first place.
We shift our internal state, trusting implicitly that the external world has absolutely no choice but to eventually contort itself to match the new frequency. It is a total surrender of frantic physical effort, exchanged for the ultimate quiet mastery of the internal realm.
So, as we bring this inquiry to a close, I want to leave you, the listener, with a lingering, powerful question, something to carry with you as you navigate the physical echoes of your day.
Mhm.
We have established today that physical reality is truly nothing more than a delayed reflection of our most deeply held, intimately felt emotional convictions.
The echo.
If that is the absolute mechanical truth of our existence, what invisible reality are you quietly, unknowingly building for yourself at this very moment simply through the dominant ambient emotions you are allowing yourself to harbor today? Are you gently tending the soil of your ultimate potential, or are you still out there in the cold, pulling forcefully on the stems, hoping for a different bloom?